Hello, pediatric resident. I'm glad that you have decided to join us for the writing elective for the medical home portal this year. If you have already done this elective, great. You could be an inspiration to others. But if this is your first time around, I just want to go through a few points that you should be aware of on what the elective entails, as it's largely independent work. Just for introductions, I'm Jennifer Goldman. I'm an associate professor of pediatrics at the University Pediatric Clinic, and I'm also the medical director and editor-in-chief for the Medical Home Portal website. Dale Herring is our editor, and she is the one who you'll primarily be communicating with on picking out topics and going back and forth with drafts and any questions you have about the writing during the week. We have a web page for the writing elective, and in order to find it, you'll want to go to the medicalhomeportal.org and select the Utah directory, and then you can find it if you look under State Partner Projects, Utah Projects, and then you'll see the pediatric writing elective is there. Depending on how you have this set up, we usually think of your time as an initial day of kind of getting to know the material and then doing some literature review and then working on a draft that you would send in. Depending on the length of the piece that you're going to work on or pieces, you may get through one thing during your time, you may get through several things. All of that's great, and we need your help. We expect that all of this work will be done remotely and currently don't have anything set up to meet you in person, although if you feel like that would be beneficial, please let us know. The material that you'll be working on for the Medical Home Portal mostly includes clinical content, the audience of which is primary care providers for children with special health care needs. There are some secondary audiences like care coordinators, and also sometimes families look at clinical information, but our clinical content is written for clinicians. There's also a section of frequently asked questions regarding medical conditions, and the frequently asked questions is geared towards families. So the writing level is different than if you're writing for a clinician, and you always have to keep your audience in mind as you're writing. Our goals and expectation is that you identify a topic or topics that you plan to work on during your time, and that you work on them independently and let us know if you're running into problems. We hope to have a draft by the end of your time. Obviously, if that's not going to work out, please communicate what's going on. The other part of it is that anytime we have you working on content, it's generally an update of existing content. And what that entails is reading it through, figuring out if it's geared appropriately towards a primary care clinician. Does it answer questions that you might have if you were going to be taking care of this? And then going through and making sure that it reflects the latest evidence-based guidelines or information that's available in the medical literature. And this is usually through doing a PubMed search. I have a resource recorded for you guys if you want to review how to do a PubMed, what we call the deep dive. And I think that's really important, and it counts as part of your rotation if you take the time to watch it. The competencies you should have from this would be ability to adapt writing to your intended audience, self-motivation to complete the tasks with minimal supervision, and then interpretation application of existing medical literature to online clinical education. That's what this is. So we'd like everybody to read some information about the Medical Home Portal on your webpage. There's a link to it. And then there's a video orientation to the Medical Home Portal I'm in the process of revising this, but this link should be adequate for you either way. So typically on your first day, you're going to take time to get to know the portal. You're going to figure out what writing options you have if you haven't already identified a topic. And then our editor will send you a Word document that you can work on. We generally have you work on it in U-Box rather than download it, just so that it's if anybody else happened to be in the document, you could lock it or work on it simultaneously if you're in the online version. And think about your work plan and kind of strategize how you're going to get this done during the time of your elective, and then outline any content changes, and be sure to set up a login to the portal. If you go back up to the top, you can see sign in. It's just a good idea to get a login. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's useful for certain things. On the next couple of days that you're working on it, generally you'll be conducting, you'll have read it through, you'll have your questions in mind, and conduct a lit review, and then you'll make edits using track changes and meet with the editor to check in, or at least send an email saying this is what I've gotten done. And then at the latter part, you'll complete any writing and editing and turn in your completed work. I have this kind of set up as if it's a week, but a lot of people have 4-day weeks or 2 weeks or longitudinal, so it's just kind of a general idea. And if you're finishing one thing and you're ready for another, it's good to communicate that a little bit ahead of time so we have a Word document ready for you to go. Okay, I'm going to show you under the University of Utah Writing and Career Development Group, excuse me, there's some resources here. These are on a page that's intended for faculty that are writing, but are also useful resources for you. Excuse me. Primarily, I want to point out there's some past trainings, and these are the using databases for literature search and then the deep dive. So both of these, particularly the deep dive, are really great if you're learning how to use the ECHLS online library resources and access them from home to do a PubMed search, and then how to nail down your criteria. I think this is like one of the most useful things you could get out of the rotation in addition to a publication. The rest of it is stuff that you probably don't need to know. There are a few things as you scroll down on their page, Updating Medical Home Portal Content. This talks you through kind of what to expect in terms of the back and forth, and lets you know that how you can add to the outline if you need to. Some of the headings are required, but sometimes you can add some headings. So you'll want to check with Dale if you think you need to make any changes to the proposed outline or to the existing outline, I guess that would be. And then you're going to work on your first draft. Now, a few things you should know. Citations. If you are adding a PubMed citation, you don't need to paste in the whole citation. You can just write PubMed ID and give the number. I think it's an 8-digit number. If there isn't a PubMed ID, then give more information. If it's a link to a source, provide the link, maybe a little description about why it's important. If it's another publication that's not on PubMed, giving the whole citation would be great if you can paste it in there. But generally what I do is I just copy the section of text that is encompassed by that citation, and then make a comment, and then put PubMed ID number out in that comment. If you're looking at something like the CDC that has its own set of citations, it would be better practice to go to the actual article that they're referencing and quote that, rather than to just reference the CDC page. So the primary article is considered a superior citation. Most of the pages will have a services and referral section, and so you want to look at this and see if you're writing something about constipation, do you have gastroenterology, pediatric gastroenterology in that list? Are there any other clinics or service providers that you might want to include, and then we can pull them from the database that's part of the medical home portal. Then I want you to check the resources section, and there should be a few valuable, high value links for clinicians and for families, including ideally at least one patient education that you could print or share. This should ideally, if you're putting something in for clinicians, it's not just basically the same thing that we have written, it's something that expands on it or gives more in-depth information. So, you know, if it's something that is from another university and it gives a quick summary of the condition that you're writing about, and it may be about the same level of detail or even less detail, we don't need that in here. We just want things that are going to add value, or tools that you might use in clinic would be really good. You will need to complete an author bio. This is really quick, and it has a confirmation of whether you have any conflicts of interest, but we're required to have a bio and conflict of interest statement in order to publish your material online. And at a certain point when you turn in your draft, you'll get some feedback. Sometimes this happens after the rotation, and hopefully it's minimal, particularly if it goes to a senior author and or an expert reviewer. The feedback may happen later, and so we'll work with you to try to get it done, but it usually doesn't take multiple hours to address it, so hopefully we'll be able to get that done in a timely fashion and get the update done. If you have ideas for senior authors or reviewers, let us know. We love to have recommendations on who you might like to work with. We'd like you to use track changes. We talked about the PubMed IDs. If you have ideas on how you want to change the text, just use track changes and write it how you want it to be read. Don't say, I would say something about blah, blah, blah in a comment. Just go ahead and make the text change. You're the author here. As much as you can, try to cite evidence, and if you have practical tidbits that you've learned that you can't find elsewhere, it's okay to include that in there. But if it's questionable, it might be nice to give us an idea of where you learned that information if you don't have a source for it specifically from the literature. When you're focusing on families, you want to keep it as short and sweet and focused on what the patients and the families need to know, and not put much excess text in there, and really try to keep the language as simple as possible. We do like to use images, but they have to be in the public domain. So Creative Commons, those kinds of things are okay. We do have a image library that we can try to use that are a little bit more generic, kids with special health care needs and their families kind of stuff. But just remember, if you're using any kind of image or algorithm, it needs to be in the public domain. And we can help you with that if there's any questions. If you haven't worked in UBox, there's a little cheat sheet here. It gets you through. It's kind of like working in OneDrive or any of those kinds of things. You just log in with your UID, and then you can work on drafts, and it's the same kind of file system. But this is great for anybody working at the U, and this will talk you through how to do that. Okay. I'm hoping that answers most of your questions about the elective. Again, you'll really want to be in close communication with Dale Herring, our technical editor, to determine which topic you're going to work on or topics, and let her know as you're coming up with proposed changes to the outline, and you have a draft ready, and you're getting ready for another topic to work on. And all the rest is up to you. So I hope you have a great time. We welcome your feedback and questions, and please reach out by email if you need anything. Thank you.